Hi there, this is Blair and Jody Hill with ConnectAutism.org. Autism education by people with autism. And what are we doing today, honey?
We're doing a segment on love and marriage autism style.
Top keys to successful relationships. We're going to talk about love and autism.
So just to run down the 4 keys that we're going to talk about specifically: commitment, communication, flexibility, and support system. So we're going to talk about those 4, but we're going to go a little bit more in depth in each one. What do you think is what do you say is the first key, the main key maybe even, for a successful marriage?
Well, I believe we have a successful marriage, and both Jody and I were diagnosed with autism about 7 years ago, even though we knew there was something wrong with us, odd about us, many years before.
There's nothing wrong with us. There's just differences.
It depends on which doctor you talk to.
Or which family member.
We've known we are a little weird in the situation of getting our children diagnosed with autism. We have now a 18-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl that both diagnosed with autism, and both Jody and I are diagnosed with high-functioning autism or Asperger's. So having Asperger's, the question is, can somebody with autism, with Asperger's, have relationships?
I think it's possible, but it takes work. And the first key is commitment. You have to have commitment. You have to make a cognitive decision that this is something you're going to work on. It's going to take work. You're going to do it. You're going to be committed to that person. I believe that love is 75% commitment and 25% feelings. So we got it all wrong. It's not all about the gushy, lovey-dovey feelings that you feel when you first fall in love with someone. Love is actually 75% commitment, and it might even be more.
And we made a commitment. We talked about this before we were doing this segment, that we don't really believe in divorce. It's like it happens, especially when there's violence in the family, but it's like we have committed to work this out. When you have trouble, you get help. We've made a commitment. When you're struggling, you get a support system. You go to counseling. You go to a marriage seminar. We've gone to plenty of them. So we put a lot into commitment. We've been married for how many years?
Well, it's going on 21 years this November, so it's a long. We've been together for a long time, and especially
long time.
Especially when you compare it to most of the marriages of today. And there's a lot of marriages that people just give up. They don't want to try. They don't want to work at it. They get tired.
Yeah.
And they just want to give up, and that's just not. And the reason is, part of it is unrealistic expectations. So what is the second part of that commitment component is to have what? Realistic expectations.
Right. It's like, especially with autism, I know her issues. I know her sensory issues. She knows mine. We have to help us with each one of those. But we know that we cannot. We're not a normal marriage. No marriage is normal. But with our 2 disabilities that we have with autism, we've had to learn to work together and give each other grace and give them some space.
All right.
So what's the second key?
So the second key is communication. Being able to talk through issues, even being able to be honest. Honesty is a big part of communication. Being able to be honest about what you're going through and what maybe the other person said, how that affects you and how that made you feel.
Well, and communication is very difficult for somebody on the autism spectrum because we misunderstand. We can't understand. We say things wrong. We don't read social cues. We can't read facial expressions. One of the hardest things.
We don't make facial expressions.
Sometimes. But you know what the hardest thing was when I was dating Jody is, correct me if I'm right, but to look deep in their eyes.
Correct you if you're right.
Wrong. Oh, did you correct me?
Yeah, I corrected you.
See, she helps me. See, I don't get mad at her when she corrects me. She helps me, and
well,
I help
sometimes
her.
He does, but he just doesn't. He doesn't punch me every time.
No, she punches me. That's it. It's spousal abuse, except she's the one beating me up.
Whatever.
Like my mom used to say, "Your dad has got a wicked right hook," or
no,
your mother has got a.
Your dad used to say that about your mom.
Yeah, my dad used to say that about mom. You got a wicked right hook or a left hook. But communication, it's very difficult because we misunderstand each other. In regular marriage, communication is wrong. Can you imagine?
Difficult.
Is difficult. Can you imagine when you have autism and everything's about communication or lack of? So we have to doubly, triply communicate, and that makes the marriage work.
Another part of communication is being able to be authentic without fear. Being able to know that your spouse is your safe zone. You can, when you're feeling stressed or your anxiety is high, you know that person is a safe person. You can say, you know what, I'm feeling very vulnerable right now. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling stressed. And you know that your spouse is your safe zone. You can talk to that person about anything. You can be authentic, be who you are. If you're having a crabby day, you can have a crabby day and not feel like that person's going to disown you and not be your friend anymore because of like kindergarten. Trouble is, the sad thing is there's a lot of people that act like that now.
Well, you need to have
as adults.
To have a relationship as a person with autism, you have to really work at it. And the person, the other person has to understand where you're at, and you have to really be more clear with your communication.
So that brings us to number 3. What is number 3?
The third key that we want to give you today on how to have a successful relationship. It works with other relationships, but we both have autism. And for you out there that have autism, don't give up hope. One of the things you need to learn to have a relationship, to date someone and then later marry them, is flexibility. You have to be flexible. I have to give Jody grace, and she has to give me grace. I didn't finish my story about looking deep into her eyes. It's so hard. It was like Superman with his laser beam eyes burning my brain out. Because anyone with autism, it's difficult to look. And I loved her, but to look in her eyes for a long time, it was like, please stop it. Don't. It's like...
My eyes!
So it's like, okay, you don't have to look at her. I love her. I don't have to look at her deeply in her eyes. I can look at her for a while, but if I start glancing even today, my eyes start to burn. And that's this thing about eye contact is painful for people on the autism spectrum.
We need to be supportive of each other, and when we're going through certain things, when we're feeling vulnerable, when we need a sensory break, we need to be understanding and supportive when that person says, okay, I need to take a break. I'm feeling overloaded. I'm feeling like my brain is going to explode, and if I don't get out of here, I'm going to aspie out. This is our new term, aspie out.
We came up with that today, and you have to give them the grace. You have to understand and not take it personally. It's not rejection. I can't stand your voice anymore. Well, a neurotypical person would be hurt by that. We understand voice sounds are like knives in your back, certain sounds.
Especially if one of your main sensitivity is auditory.
Right. What do you do when you aspie out? What's an example?
Well, let's put it this way. On the outside, I might look like I'm just, sitting there listening, having just enjoying the conversation. But what's really happening inside my head is, what do I do? What do I say? How do I do it? What do I do? Am I supposed to say something? Am I supposed to do something?
Am I supposed to respond?
Should I respond to that? What do I do?
Did I talk too much?
In my head.
Did I say something now they hate me because I said something inappropriate? I mean, a billion thoughts.
Was that a look of hostility? Did they
they look angry. They're angry. Everybody looks angry to me sometimes. That's autism. You look angry.
But that's what's going on in the person with autism in their brain. The Aspie brain is so full of thoughts and what's happening that on the outside we're looking like we're just normal. Everything is fine. And what's happening on the inside is we're having a complete anxiety meltdown.
And then another big thing under that key of flexibility is grace or forgiveness. You have to really be good at forgiveness, meaning giving grace back and forth, because my voice, my tone, my talking will drive Jody crazy sometimes. If I'm chewing a cracker, my mouth is closed, I'm chewing properly, she could still hear that and it'll drive her crazy. There's a million sensory issues she has. And the same with me. You have to give each other grace, and you have to learn to forgive, not get vindictive, to forgive. It's a big one.
Yep, so forgiveness is a really big part of flexibility. So we got grace, being supportive, understanding, and forgiveness, all under that key element of flexibility. So what is that fourth key element that needs to be there for a successful relationship? What is that fourth key?
You have to be dumb enough to marry a girl.
No.
I'm just kidding.
No.
Support systems. Okay, you need a support system. Now we have got a fair amount of support systems, but we always have one. What do we mean by a support system? You can't do this alone. You have to humble yourself and realize, I can't do it. There's a lot of things that a neurotypical person can do, I can't do. So you have to learn to get a support system. And what are the different kinds of support systems we have?
Well, one of them is like a support group, like there's parent support groups out there, but for people who are adults with autism, a lot of times it's more difficult to find a support group specifically geared for adults. But if you can find one, form one, or somehow find if there's a support group in your area. We have a support group that's not just for parents, but it's for adults that have autism as well. And then, of course, we invite any professionals, teachers, educators that to join us, because it's a good education for everyone. But for those of us with autism ourselves, it's good to have that support group of people that know what you're going through, because they're going through it too. And then you always are able to help them too of how to. And
I thought of this today. We're talking about doing this segment on love and marriage autism style. Well, before I married Jody, I was so lonely because I have such a hard time connecting with people, and I didn't have a lot of friends. It was hard to communicate. When I met Jody and married her, we understood each other. There's always somebody there. If nobody else in the world understands it, and there's some days a lot of people in the world, they don't understand us. They reject us. I always have Jody. There's always somebody here, so I'm not lonely. But also we have friends and family we can go to, and we also have church. And then another very important one is counseling. Now, a lot of men have trouble with this. They think it's a slam to their masculinity or something to get help from somebody. It's like you get help. You go to a coach to become a better football player. You go to a counselor to have a better marriage. So you need to get professional counseling, pastoral counseling, some kind of good counseling to help you. And we have had tons of counseling. We have so many counselors over the years, professional and people who are just friends, that have helped us because we have so many deficits. But yet we made it.
Well, and one of the things is sometimes communication, no matter how hard you try to communicate, sometimes, this is in any, even a neurotypical marriage. Men speak one language, women speak another. Well, when you're Aspie, you don't even understand your own languages half the time.
Right,
so you're sitting there and you're talking and you're trying to communicate, and it just gets more and more impossible, more and more difficult.
Yep.
So what we found is when you go to counseling, a counselor will help you navigate through those difficult communication systems when you're trying to communicate and figure out what the other person is saying, figure out what you're saying, trying to understand what you yourself are feeling. And that's the wonderful thing about having that counseling segment of your support system. And so they're all very important. Not everybody has friends and family that really understand what they're going through, because
you need to find somebody.
Well, and because autism is they consider it an invisible disability.
Many times, yep.
Because it's not something that on the outside you can necessarily just see immediately. Some people, they just think they're odd, or they're just a little different, but they don't necessarily see the deficits that person really is struggling with. Yep. So that's another really key important thing. If you can get your family to understand, and your friend and some friends, close friends that can understand what you're going through, and you can go to and talk to when you're struggling. That's really good too.
And one of the things we have started is Connect Autism on Facebook. And this we've designed to communicate to adults with autism, parents, if you want help, support. We've started this page to help people. You can make comments, you can ask questions, and we'll give you an Aspie point of view and help you through it. So that's our Facebook page at connectautism.org. And have hope. There's hope for you if you're looking for a relationship. You just have to work on your own life first and get some of these things in order. We're going to wrap up this segment of connectautism.org with Blair and Jody Hill. Autism education by people with autism. We want you to see autism from the inside out. Thanks for joining us on this segment.
Bye-bye.
See ya.